Wow, what an intro. Hello everyone and welcome to my talk called Spring Debugger Behind the Scenes of Spring Boot. I'm Marco from JetBrains and we're going to be talking about Spring Debugger, which I think is one of the most actually exciting feature releases we've brought to IntelliJ IDEA in the last couple of years. And that should supposedly help you on your day-to-day work with Spring Boot. Meaning if you don't work with Spring Boot on a day-to-day basis, it's the wrong talk for you. The way we're going to approach this is I'm not just going to give you some boring slides. We're going to do a live coding session in half an hour and hopefully show you all these tips and tricks where and how you might be using it. And for that, I prepared a tiny scenario. The scenario is, imagine I start work at a new startup. On my first day, I get a ticket. In this case, it's a U-track ticket. And I have to work off this ticket. You can see there's 9 bullet point items on here. We're going to work these off, see Spring Debugger along the way, and hopefully live happily ever after. Now, going through these bullet points, we can skip the first one. Your account name is Marbil, whatever. The second one is more important. Clone a repository, which I already have. And actually, you can try out everything I did or I'm about to do in this presentation afterwards yourself with the repository, with your own repository, whatever you like. Run it with profile dev and open localhost 8080 to see if it works. Let me briefly show you the project we're going to be working with. It's a very simple Spring Boot project. It's a Maven-based project, and it has a couple of dependencies. So we have a bit of Spring data JPA, a bit of Thymeleaf, a bit of web. So we're just displaying web pages. Other than that, pretty normal. Controller package, model package, repository package, an application class, a couple of properties files. So literally what you would expect by looking at any random Spring Boot application. Now I'm just going to start it real quick. And then we can have a look at what the website or what the current application actually looks like. So now let's see. It booted up on port 8080, which looks good. And when I go to a browser, I had that page open already. I see the sexiest homepage ever, where I can see, sorry about that, Marit, account name undefined, your display name acceptance test, add random customer, a couple of things, and we'll have to work with these in a second. So, step number 4 in my to-do list is make sure that the account name on that web page shows Marbil, which is my account name. Add a properties file and check the properties if needed. All right, so what we want to do is we want here that it doesn't just say undefined. We want to create a properties file, add a value here and there, and then see if we can make it show up. Well, let's have a look at what the application looks like. Just briefly, so we're all on the same page, there is one HTML template. I can see here when looking at the HTML template, it says account name. There is a variable here, name is being set. When I look at where the account name comes from, I can see it comes from up here, which is a property which is called developer.account, right? So what I would do is I would just maybe create a new properties file inside here. So application-marco.properties. I'm going to say, I'm going to put this here, right? And assuming now I boot up my application again with a new profile. Sorry? Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So let's just see. OK, now assuming I did everything correctly, also remove the comma correctly, if I boot this up again, hopefully it should all just work. And I should see my property being displayed. Right, so a brief look. We boot it up again. And I'm going to refresh the application. It still says undefined. And that is usually when I would turn around and say to my colleague, oh, where the hell do I have to click? Where do I now have to find out where this property comes from? Because there are, I think, 12, 13, 14 property sources that Spring Boot actually tries to get properties from. What would I do now? And usually I ask people, we're a bit short on time today, so I'll give you a quick fix answer, because that is all that Spring Debugger is about. When you have Spring Debugger installed, which is a plugin currently, the only thing you need to do is you need to press the debug button and start up your application in debug mode. And then you will see that magic actually happens. So the application booted up, and we'll see a couple of things. Here on the left side, a bit of visualization, meaning that we actually gray out property files which haven't been loaded currently. We show you the ones which have been loaded with the green bubble. They are active. And even more so, when you look inside, you can see my specified property Marbel, but with an inlay hint behind it, you can see, well, the actual value is undefined of that property. And we don't just show you the value, we actually give you a link. You can click it, and it will bring you directly to where the property was configured. And it doesn't matter where the property was configured. It could be a system variable, it could be in some random class, it could be on a cloud server, it could be in a different properties file. We will find the right place. So let's click it right now, and let's see where that brought us. In this case, it brought me to a class which is called First A Prank Processor. And just to quickly show you what it does, it's an environment post processor, which does one thing. It adds a property source with the highest priority at first, which overrides, so to speak, the property developer account with the string undefined in reverse. Just if someone had said, well, just search for the string, undefined across your project, I wanted to protect against that. It's a tiny bit fake, obviously, for that scenario, but what's important really is it doesn't matter where you specify the property. We will figure out where it comes from, and we will show it to you right in these properties files, for example. What I'm going to do is, let me just briefly switch to English here, right? I'm going to uncomment this one here, so it doesn't get instantiated anymore. And then I'll show you a bit more, because it's not just about visualization and navigation, but when I hit let's say I'm just working on my controller method and I hit a random breakpoint. So I'm just going to refresh the page here. I'm inside any method in your application. We thought, hey, we're actually kind of smart, because at that point, when you're hitting a breakpoint, we know every single property which is set in your application. It doesn't matter if it's a custom property from yourself, if it's a default Spring property, if some framework sets it, whatever property it is. And we could just give you access to it. And that's what we did. Down here in the debugger panel window, what you can do is you can now switch on the right side to Spring properties. And then you can just start typing, and you will get auto-completion and evaluation to any property inside your project. So Spring Application Project ID, for example, here, some default Kafka properties, right? I didn't even know I had or wanted. Developer account, thank you, I got it. It doesn't really matter. You can evaluate them. You cannot reset them. So at the moment, it's read-only. We're thinking of adding, you making these properties also writable. But you can read them, you can figure out where the property was set, and that's essentially what we wanted to give you. Easy visualization for properties, navigation, and then also evaluation. Right, let me just resume the program here. I'm going to switch back to my task, make sure that the account name shows. Let me just have we restarted our application? We have not. I still have to show you that it actually works, but it should. Meanwhile, can I get a tiny quick ooh if someone thinks this might be potentially helpful so far? Just a tiny bit of yeah. Ooh, okay. We're going to work our way up there, and let's see what happens at the end. Okay, right. So now it's ooh. Step number 5, make sure that display name shows Marco Behler, check display name resolvers. Again, right here on the web page, we have, at the moment, it shows random strings. If I refresh the page here, we want to show my real name here. And again, what we could do is we could go through the application. Let's have a look. The template, have a look at the template right here, display name, that's where it's being set. Then we're going to figure out it's a display name resolver. Looking at the display name resolver, we can see that someone, I don't know, created 13 or 15 implementations of a display name resolver. I don't know why, but that's what's happening. And the thing is, all these display name resolvers have different profiles, right? Profile performance, profile windows, whatever. We'd have to figure out, hey, which of these beans have been instantiated actually? And again, the question is, how would I do that now? I mean, I could obviously boot up my application, set a breakpoint, figure out, the instance type, whatever. We thought, again, let's make it simple. You simply hit the debug button. And as with properties before, we should be able to see some magic happening in a second. Right. The application has booted up. Again, you can see we're trying to, we have these visualization hints, meaning we're going to gray out any of the beans which have not been instantiated because of, for example, a non-matching profile. We would, by the way, also show you mocked beans in orange. If you were, for example, for testing, you would just mock out a couple of beans, so you would actually see which ones are the real beans, which ones have been mocked out. We can see that we have the display name the interface here. We have a mock display name resolver, which is set to primary. So we'll just remove that here. And we have a simple display name resolver, which looks roughly like the one I want to be primary, right? So I'm just going to put it here because it's going to resolve, hopefully, my account name. Let's try that out. I'm just going to restart the application once more. Let's see if that already fixed it. And if we could, in this way, make use of the visualization properly. Let's figure it out. All right, that worked. Don't give me the ooh just yet. It's too early. It's too early. Because again, visualization just with properties is nice. But again, we thought, hey, we need to spice it up a little. And we need to give you even more power. And for that, I will just put a breakpoint somewhere else, different method, which returns me all the customers from the database. And I'm going to refresh and hit the breakpoint. Now, what we're trying to do is, bad minds could say we're trying to keep you inside IntelliJ IDEA and never let you go again. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you all the information you ever wanted to have about your Spring application right down here in the debug panel window. Meaning, I'm inside a customer service class. You can see we're now trying to highlight to you, hey, this is a Spring bean. We're going to give you all the meta information about the Spring bean right there. So it's a singleton. It's only available in this context for these specific profiles. It's injected into a couple of other beans and depends on other beans. You can actually find out also right here if you have, I don't know, a dependent bean. Hey, where was that bean specified, really? And when you click navigate, it brings you straight to the place, which is an XML file right here. But again, it doesn't matter. XML, bean creation methods, wherever a bean was defined, we will actually bring you right to that specific place without you having to worry about it. And you can simply stay down here in your debugger panel. Again, visualization, navigation, and then we thought, hey, could we make it even more spicy? Because you saw you could evaluate any Spring property before. And then we thought, why can't we make it so you can have access to any Spring bean your application consists of, independent of it being injected into your current service? So when you look at, for example, the customer service here, you have a customer repository, you have a customer helper. That's it. But what if you wanted to, for example, directly access the entity manager? Now you can. You simply start typing. We'll autocomplete it for you. Create query from customer, get result list. And you should be able to get a nice little result list right here. Right, here we go. And you can see the results right there. The entity manager wasn't directly injected into your class, but you can, any bean, even all these, defaults, your home controller, you have access to, your controller beans, to any auto configuration. Any bean that is being booted up as part of your Spring application context, you now have access in here, in anywhere where you can effectively evaluate expressions. Like, for example, here. Let me just open it up. That didn't work. Right. the evaluate window. Even you can set breakpoints and make these, bean evaluations a breakpoint condition, right? Like here, only break if some bean evaluates to something. So our developers went a bit crazy with where you can actually evaluate all these beans. But again, I want you to remember visualization support, navigation support, and evaluate any bean anywhere, any time. I almost sound like a salesman at this point in time. All right, I think we have step number 5 checked. Can I once more get a tiny ooh for the bean evaluation so far? Right. I think there was a bit more than properties before. Let's see. Okay. Step number 6, fix broken add random customer, please. Well, the thing is, I hit that button, and you can see the button up here is spinning, which means there is some sort of a deadlock happening. So for whatever reason, something is being saved into the database, and that transaction doesn't really complete. And now we have a spinning web page, and hopefully we can solve that. Which brings us to the topic of transaction tracing, which is a fun topic to get into. Now, as before, what we're going to do is I'm going to have a look at the index.html page. This is the button, add random customer. It calls a method transaction level 1 service start transaction chain, right? Which is a transactional method, and it calls transaction level 2 service, right? And when I look at the class hierarchy, I can see I have 7 services nested in each other, each supposedly opening transactions, closing them, which again looks a bit fake for this demo, but actually in real life I have seen much worse than just 7 levels of transactional nested inside each other. And one way to approach this is we have customer service, and I'm just going to put a breakpoint here because at some point someone will call create random customer, and then we'll see what happens. Right, so I'm just going to hit the post again. I hit the breakpoint. And remember the debugger tool window down here? We're trying to trace active transactions, which means you can see them actually here. We noticed, hey, you have a transaction running. It comes from transaction level 1 service .start transaction chain. So we will actually trace the real origin for you, and you can navigate to the place where the transaction originally started. You don't have to do anything; just click navigate, and you'll be brought there. We'll give you metadata, isolation level, propagation behavior. We also show you what the L1 entity cache has inside. We haven't got any entities loaded here, but if I step over this once more, you can see the entity cache here fills up with that one tiny customer. And you didn't have to do anything. Just hit a breakpoint and we're there. That was the first transaction, and I told you there was some sort of a deadlock, so supposedly there are 2 transactions running. So I'm just going to click resume, and we hit the breakpoint again. And this time what happened, you can see there is a new transaction running, transaction level 5 service. Looking at it, yeah, someone put in a requires new somewhere, which probably shouldn't be here. You also see the logical parent. Remember, we had a transaction already running in transaction level 1 service, and then we split off with a new transaction. So not only do we show you, the current transaction, but the entire transaction tree. And this should hopefully help you, tracing and debugging transactional problems. Now, one thing I'll do is actually I'll remove the second call to create customer as well. Refresh the entire application, and then we'll see if that actually worked. Let me just briefly see if we fixed the problem. Right, so continue. Let's get rid of the breakpoints. Add random customer. Right, and my customer list now is growing, which means we can potentially sell the startup for more money at some point with more customers in the list. That was what I wanted to show you when it comes to transaction tracing. Can I once more get a tiny ooh, what people think? Ooh. Okay, so now the thing is, now is essentially the last section is coming up, and now I need a big ooh at the end. We'll see if we can make it there. Make sure to be able to connect to the dev database. It is spawned through Docker Compose, a bit fiddly. Now, let me take you on a tiny journey. The project uses a Spring Boot's Docker Compose support. What we do here is we use a MySQL latest. We boot up a MySQL latest container. Port 3306 is only inside the container. It's not exposed to the host, which would mean we would have to put something here. And I know if I don't put a number here, it's going to be a random port. And then the question is, how would you actually connect to that database? And I've seen 10,000 ways of doing that. What most people at some point do is they just give static ports then. And if you have 10 microservices, you just make sure you sequentially number them and live happily ever after. And we thought, hey, there must be a simpler way. The simpler way is you just click the debug button, and then we'll see what magically happens when you do that. Because we're trying to be smart about detecting any data source your application connects to. And when you open up the database tool window here on the right side, you can actually see that we detected the database with the random port 49708, right? And you just can, open up the database tables and start querying it. We just automatically detected it, imported it into the database tool window, so you didn't have to do anything. Oh. Hold on. Just a tiny second. Well, that was too quick. It works for any relational database. It also works for MongoDB. And just so you're not getting the wrong, expectation, it has nothing to do with Docker Compose. So if you run your application normally, and if you had 10 databases, doesn't matter. If you run a test, for example, like over here, I have a customer service test, and that customer service test uses test containers. It also boots up a MySQL latest database, also random port numbers. And I just want to debug my test here and have access to a database. Then you'll see the same thing happening. We'll have to wait a tiny second until it boots up. Right, so we broke inside the test method. Again, over here, you can see there's now a new group, which reflects the customer service test.test create random customer method. And you can see here, again, is a random database. We just booted up with test containers. We figured it out. You have your tables. You go ahead, 2 tables, and that's literally all you have to do. Now is the time. Who thinks that automated database importing is quite wooey? Yes, I like it. Great. Now, let's see what we have inside the what's next database table. Hold on a second. First, I need to double check if there was something else. Fix add random customer, please. Make sure to connect to the database. We have that. Look at more tickets. No, thank you. Number 9, thank you. Right, so we'll work this off. Now, what you need to do is, let me have a look at this database table. It says download Spring Debugger plugin. At the moment, it's a plugin. You can download it by just simply going to IntelliJ IDEA, look at the plugins, right? And then you'll have Spring Debugger somewhere inside here. We did that because we wanted to have faster release cycles and not be bound to the official IntelliJ IDEA releases. But install it once, we'll update it automatically for you. And then the only thing you need to do is hit the damn debug button, and that's all there is to it. Other than that, I want to finish off with maybe a few thoughts. For us, it's important you try it out, and you let us know what you think. And also, if you have anything is possible when it comes to the Spring Debugger universe. If you have any feature requests, anything you think could be done better, could be done worse, just send me an email, marco@jetbrains.com, and we'll figure it out. And it's super important for us to know what you would like to see next, because we have ideas. We don't necessarily know if that's the most important high-value stuff to work on. But again, I read all of these emails personally. I reply to all of these emails personally. So if you go back home today, download Spring Debugger plugin, give it a try, send me an email. I will be happy to hear from you. We have a couple minutes left. Are there any questions so far? Does anyone have any questions? The question was, can we get it for Quarkus? I cannot say yes at the moment. So can I say maybe? Maybe. Right. So I'll put it down. Obviously, Quarkus is on our roadmap, but at the moment, it's not going to happen in the next couple of months. That's the honest answer for Quarkus. The question was, can we tweak the introspection level of the plugin? At the moment, you cannot. So, but if you have any ideas of what you would like to tweak, for example, again, send me an email and we'll discuss it with the team. The question is, does the database database detection only work in debug mode, or does it work in run mode as well? The answer is everything you saw only works in debug mode, because we actually use the debugger API heavily to make Spring Debugger work internally. So there's no Java agent, whatever, running. We just hit silent breakpoints when you boot up the application. And that's how we build, all the information in the background. So you actually have to run it in debug mode. It does not work in run mode. And nothing you saw works in run mode. Remote debugging, yes, I've been waiting for that question. Does it work with remote debugging? Remote debugging was one of the biggest limitations we've had so far. And I'm actually happy to say that we're going to fix it until the next bigger release, which might be in, 6-8 weeks. Actually, I saw it work on master today. I'm not kidding. But remote debugging of applications will also work. Yeah, it will work very soon. Not just with this version I just showed you. Oh, right. Any other questions? You have to shout, unfortunately. Do you plan to support? Cassandra. It was talked about, but again, is not on the nearest. It's not in the nearest roadmap, unfortunately. No Cassandra support real soon. If there are no more questions left, I would like to ask you for one last ooh before we all go. Ooh. Thank you. You were an awesome crowd. I'm still around. You can always talk to me here on the floors. Thank you for attending, and hopefully see you soon.